Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Last night on SmackDown, WWE did the exact opposite of what I pitched last night and had AJ Styles defeating Bobby Lashley to advance to the World Heavyweight Tournament final against Seth Rollins at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia later this month. And joining me today, first of all, is the man who predicted exactly that last night, the co-host of the podcast, Clark Taylor. How are you today, Clark?
I'm doing well. That, of all of the times I've gotten a prediction right, I did not see coming. I actually had zero confidence when I said it out loud and realized even yesterday when I said it, there wasn't very much logic behind it. But it is nice to be right every now and again. It was funny to see how it played out live after yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. It was certainly an interesting one. Also joining us today, we have Anthony Ricciardi. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. It's the first time I've done a Saturday in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you back, and we've got a lot to talk about here today. And also joining us is Coby Galenzoski. How are you, Coby?
Doing pretty good. Let's talk about SmackDown. I thought it was a very well put together SmackDown, and at the end of the day, there was a lot that actually happened, and it was one of those, like, this SmackDown was really good for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. No, absolutely was a jam-packed episode of SmackDown, and we're breaking it down today. And let's start with what kicked off the show, which was the triple threat match between AJ Styles, Rey Mysterio, and Edge. And a lot of people, including myself on yesterday's podcast, said that this is a dream match for them. And wow, oh wow, it really was just that. It was just a really fun triple threat. I mean, obviously, the thing that kind of overshadowed it for some people on the internet was the botched Edge spear on Mysterio to end it. That didn't look great. But apart from that, it was a banger. And shockingly, AJ Styles won. I said on yesterday's show I didn't want AJ winning, very simply because, just like Lashley, which we'll get into in a second, I wanted Styles to not take the pin in this match, but to not win either, so they can just keep him away and protect him, ready for a feud with Roman down the line this year, as he's one of the very few top stars on that SmackDown roster who hasn't feuded with Roman Reigns. However, AJ won and went on to the final later on in the night. But then we had the next triple threat match, which was Bobby Lashley versus Austin Theory versus Sheamus. And of course, on yesterday's show, Coby, you called that perhaps they were going to do a repeat of that Backlash and Theory was going to win the exact same way. Well, they did tease that, but in the end, Bobby Lashley did get the victory. So basically, the two guys who I said they should protect, AJ Styles and Lashley, both ended up winning the match, which meant one of them would have to take the pin later on in the night. And I'm still presuming the other one will have to take the pin to Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. But at the end of the day, right, listen, they're two great stars. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. They are very deserving of a World Heavyweight Championship opportunity. It's just the fact that Roman is running out of challenges and all of that type of thing. But anyway, they went on to a match later on in the night. And Bobby Lashley and AJ did have a fun match. And in the end, and this kind of surprised me a little bit, but AJ Styles got that victory, meaning that AJ Styles will take on Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. And I loved their match. I believe it was Money in the Bank at 2019, if I'm correct. That was a banger. And I'm really looking forward to seeing their match again at Night of Champions. Two people who absolutely deserve a World Heavyweight Championship title. I still think it'll go to Seth Rollins at the end of the day, but it's going to certainly be a fun match for the championship. And yes, it's face versus face, but I said on yesterday's show, I like a hard brand split, and I don't particularly want them going on each other's shows, making this a big feud. Just have it. Why both guys want the title? That's why, going to be honest, I would have preferred it to be Edge on the SmackDown side, as that's a lot more of a story you could tell, with Edge explaining why he wants it and then wants to retire with it. And on the Raw side, I mean, Seth Rollins very easily could do the same thing there, well, minus the retirement. But let's go on to you first, Clark. What did you think of these two triple threat matches last night? And are you happy that it's AJ Styles going on to Night of Champions?
It's funny. I really enjoyed both triple threat matches last night. AJ, while I agree with some of the stuff he said about protecting him for Roman, I don't think it hurts him too bad, even if he does take the loss to Rollins. And we haven't seen AJ in the main event picture in a long time. And to have him main event on SmackDown essentially against Lashley last night, and he's going to main event again against Seth Rollins, I think it's worth it. And I enjoyed it. It's nice to see him after the injury scare last year, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Him back in a title picture, and I think that there's an easy route back to him feuding with Roman Reigns, no doubt.
Yeah, no, you just know that from a kayfabe perspective, Roman and Heyman are just going to be like, well, you lost when you were competing for the consolation prize, so why on earth should you get a shot for this?
Yeah.
And I mean, when they make that point, which inevitably Heyman will do because it's a smart thing to say, it's just going to make that entire feud be a bit like, yeah, AJ's not winning. And they are running out of believable challengers for Roman. But hey, we'll get into that a bit later on. Specifically on the 2 triple threat matches and the winner, Coby, what was your thoughts?
I mean, 100%. Like you said, that dream match did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was actually a really solid match. Aside from that botch, it was just 3 men who, like they said on commentary, they had a collective 90 years in the business.
Wow.
That's insane. And also, that's like saying AJ Styles is the baby, knowing he's a 20-year veteran in the match. It was just a fun match. Like everyone had their moments and everyone looked good. The sequences were solid. The other match was what it was. It was fun kind of seeing them team up on Theory for a bit, and Sheamus got the beats of the bottom. And then, like you said, I thought it was smart to kind of acknowledge the similar 3-way events from Backlash, and then they did. At the end of the day, I think it was the 2 interesting ones. I understand not going with Theory because Theory shouldn't take a loss, just like Gunther. That's why we kind of said Gunther wasn't going to be on the Raw side. Lashley can take a loss, and it's the same thing. So could AJ, so could Edge. All of the men in the match can take a loss if they're putting the title on Seth Rollins. It's a matter of you can't have Theory because it was Sheamus that got submitted, right?
No, it was
Theory.
Theory.
It was Theory. It was Theory.
Yeah, it was Theory who took the loss.
Okay, it was Theory. So that almost made sense that you could have protected Lashley if Theory came out in the main event. To I would have preferred. It's a lose-lose. That kind of would have protected Lashley if Theory needed to come out and kind of distract Lashley for Styles to win. Obviously, then you have Styles I didn't want to win this way. And we can almost look ahead to what's happening is we know it's AJ Styles and Grayson Waller on the Grayson Waller effect. And we know what also happens is next week's taped. Next week is live, and then they're taping it because they're going to do they have to tape the SmackDown before Night of Champions.
Yeah.
So their odds are they're going to probably do Grayson Waller versus AJ Styles once more in the build-up.
Oh, wow.
And I think Waller's going to take the loss. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's certainly an interesting perspective on it. But Anthony, what were your thoughts on the 2 triple threat matches? And are you happy that it's AJ Styles going on to Night of Champions?
Honestly, going into the show, my thought was, since Seth was locked in for the other slot, I figured it was either AJ or Edge was probably going to be his opponent. Logically, just because if you're looking for a big match and can deliver, it probably would be those 2 with Seth. The Lashley match was what it was. I got to be honest, Lashley's never really overly appealed to me. So whoever won that one, I knew was going to end up, losing to AJ anyway. So I thought the AJ, Edge, and Mysterio match was how could you miss? With that level of talent in that ring, multiple world titles, 2 out of the 3 are technically Hall of Famers already. One's going to be a future one, no doubt. So you knew the talent was there to deliver. And they did. So as far as Seth, I do think Seth's probably going to end up taking the title. I mean, the man put Cody over 3 straight times, tried to get a decent match out of Omos. The man deserves a title at this point.
That's a good point. It is. He's done a lot
He
of
got
really
a decent
great work.
match out of Omos.
He's earned
That's the fact of the matter.
That's debatable.
That was Omos's best match.
He got a match out of Omos.
Yeah, how
It
low
was
is
decent.
that bar though, Coby? Like realistically, how low was that Omos bar that you're going great match for Omos? Like
I
it's
said it was a great match.
No, he's improved. Omos has improved.
That
for
was
sure,
his
but
best showing. It was.
yeah,
he's
but the
improved.
bar's
In
low.
fairness,
That's the
let's
point.
not just bury Omos. He has improved massively over
This
the
whole
last
time, I
bit.
thought his name was Almost.
Well, I think he's almost there. That's what I'll say on the matter. I think he is improving. And listen, we can all agree one thing, and that is that when he first came up, he wasn't ready. He was not ready at all. But he's putting in a lot of work. So let's just hope he continues to improving, as I do think he is almost there, Clark. But
Got him. Full circle.
But I mean, listen. Do you guys all basically think that Rollins is winning at Night of Champions, or do any of you believe that AJ could win?
I think it'd be so cool if they swerved us and AJ wins, but it's got to be Rollins in this one.
Here's the problem. If AJ wins, you're going to move him to Raw. Or you bring in the rest of his crew with him? Because then that's the question.
All
yeah,
of them for Cody, perhaps, and that's maybe how you get Cody on SmackDown.
Cody needs to stay far away from Roman.
If they're going to 40, Cody goes nowhere near Roman. It's a Money in the Bank thing or a Rumble.
It's a money.
That's how he gets there.
And like that's the one thing that kind of is
Elimination
like
Chamber.
he could win the chamber,
Elimination Chamber.
but
What?
Well, I mean, okay, yeah, fair enough. If they change the rules,
if they do the same format,
yeah.
Well, no, if they do the same format of the chamber that they went with the women, like the final 3. And if Cody's a final 3 participant, then it was like, okay, well, he's in the chamber to get the chance at Roman or whatever.
Well,
but then it's like, well, why is the Rumble winner going for the World Heavyweight?
I want the moment where the final 2 are Cody and Solo in the chamber, and Solo realizes he's stuck in the chamber with Cody. That would be such a great moment.
The problem with that is the chamber rule would have to be changed. You could pick any champion. So in theory, the only way you could do it right now is winning the Money in the Bank or the Rumble. They're the only ways you can challenge whatever champion, no matter what brand. They'd have to completely change the rules for the chamber to do that.
And if they did change the rules for the chamber too, it might make it a little bit too obvious that Cody's winning.
Yeah.
To be brutally honest.
I mean, I don't know, man, because think of it this way: like, if you have the Rumble winner pick the World Heavyweight Championship to challenge for, and then you do a chamber match to challenge for the Universal Undisputed.
Yeah, but why would a Raw
that'd be
guy be in it though?
Yeah.
Why would a Raw guy be in the match?
The way they
from
did
each
it this
show
year,
because you have the Rumble winner, maybe potentially from SmackDown, pick the world champion.
Okay.
Randomly, right? Because the Rumble winner can pick whoever they want, and then all of a sudden you just do 3 Raw guys, 3 SmackDown guys. It's a co-branded pay-per-view in the chamber, and maybe you got to have Solo on that side, and he's the thorn in Cody's side, and all of a sudden it gets down to those 2, and it's Cody and Solo, and he's stuck, and no Roman for help, nobody else for help, and Cody's got a shot, and then now we'll see round 2.
I mean, when you started explaining that, Clark, I was kind of thinking, it's a little obvious or whatever. But truthfully, that might be the way to do it. The SmackDown star picks the Raw title. I mean, you'd have to explain a good reason why they're choosing that one. Otherwise, because I mean, the obvious reason is, they think they'll lose against Roman. Well, that makes the world title look bad. So they're going to have to think of something which makes a lot of sense, and I'm not sure exactly what that would be or why. But if they could do it convincingly, that could be the way to do it. And that, of course, very late in the year as well, to get Cody as almost like a last chance back over at SmackDown 4. Roman Reigns, that certainly would be interesting. I'd like to see that, actually. You have sold me on that one, but somebody that WWE sold everybody on last night was Cameron Grimes, and a lot of people going into last night's show were complaining that Baron Corbin was Cameron Grimes' first feud, and I said it last night. I was like, come on here. As long as Grimes ends up going over, I've got no issue with this. Corbin, he's a decent talent. He can certainly help give Grimes that first feud on the main roster or whatever. And as they both came out, Grimes didn't actually get a huge reaction. So I think it is still the case of, which you would expect, that he just needs to make himself more familiar with the main roster crowd, and they need to explain his story a little bit more, perhaps, which I think they will have time to do, especially after last night. But they both came down to the ring. Corbin then started cutting this promo. And as soon as he started started cutting the promo, I knew what was going to happen. I just saw it come in. I was like, this is Masvidal Askren again, isn't it? I knew it was going to happen as soon as I saw Corbin cutting that promo. He finished it. You could just see Grimes ready. Bang! Double stomp to the head. I've forgotten the actual name Grimes calls it. Okay, nice.
Such a great one.
Bang! Done. 1, 2, 3 in a matter of seconds. It must be one of the quickest victories on SmackDown ever. Grimes got the victory over Baron Corbin. And yeah, he looked really good, Grimes. They're clearly setting him up for a push. Like I said yesterday, 29 years old, which you always know me, prime age for the main roster. And I'm really excited to see where this goes, because Cameron Grimes could be a star in WWE, and he deserves to go to the moon. But what did you think about this one, Clark?
I love Cameron Grimes, and I love the Masvidal Askren reference. It's perfect, and you could see the look on Grimes' face. He was so ready. And one thing I love about that move, the cave in, is he really can hit it out of nowhere, and it looks devastating. It looks like a move that would put you away with one move for a quick finish, even if it was like they were short on time, and that's why they squeezed it in like that. It played great. It worked great. I love the name, the cave in. It cracks me up. I know it kind of fits more when he was more caveman Grimes initially in NXT, but just a great name for a great finishing move. And Corbin's underrated. Honestly, I know he gets a lot of flack from time to time. He's underrated. He's really good in those situations. Plug and play wherever you need him. Can be a heel. Can wrestle a short match. Can wrestle a long one. And can work on the mic. And I hope that Corbin finds a little bit more footing, and that this is a little bit longer feud, maybe because he's upset about how quick the victory happened. Yeah, that would be my only thing.
I'd love to see this go on for a little bit longer. I mean, do you think Cameron Grimes could end up being a main event talent, Clark?
I hope so. That'd be really cool. I think he's got the charisma to do it. I think character work wise in NXT, I mean, the To the Moon run is one of the funniest, most entertaining runs I've seen. I really want to see how they handle his promo segments and mic work on this main roster run. And if we get that humor combined with the physical threat that he is, I think there's no doubt he can be in the main event picture. I have no issue with that, Cameron Grimes, for sure.
I mean, listen, if we do see him cutting his own promos, I think, and getting a push while doing so, I think that does confirm that Vince is 100% not involved in creative anymore. Because of course, Vince has always hated that accent, that southern accent for some reason. But I really do think the sky is the limit for him. And listen, he basically reinvented himself 3 times in NXT. So I think he could do it. I really do think that he's got the potential to be a top star in the company. Main event WrestleMania one day? I mean, I don't know, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. I think he's at the very least going to be somebody upper mid card for the foreseeable future, and a great asset for WWE going forward. But one team who we kind of thought was going to be a great asset for WWE and kind of hasn't been is Damage Control. We often talk about it. What damage have they controlled? Well, they didn't control any last night. Bayley, before the match, actually did a promo backstage with Damage Control and basically compared herself to Roman Reigns and did a couple of shots at Io Sky, and you could see Io was getting visibly frustrated. So I don't think Damage is going to be controlled for much longer. But, Io Sky clearly wasn't happy. But Dakota Kai was still all pumped up. And that Bayley and Dakota Kai went out and faced Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the women's tag team championships. And it was an all right match. But Liv Morgan, I believe it was Liv Morgan, got the roll up on Bayley in the end of it. And yeah, Damage Control took another loss. It's not hugely surprising. As like we said the other day, Liv and Raquel are facing Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green for the women's championships, or I don't know if it's for a championship match or if it's, I believe it is a championship match, yeah, on Monday on Raw. So it was kind of obvious that wouldn't be heel versus heel, so it's probably going to be Liv and Raquel winning. But still, Damage Control are taking loss after loss, and it seems more likely than ever that a split is near. But Coby, what were your thoughts on this segment, and do you think Damage Control is coming to an end?
I think more than I think they very much are going to come to an end sooner rather than later. And I mean, I don't want to say it's been a failed attempt to get them over as a faction, but it's been a failed attempt to get them over as a faction. There's multiple fears that come with this. The fear is like after it, where do they go from there? Yeah. That's almost how I view a lot of things. Is what is it? What's next? What result and what's the end goal? That's how I'm thinking. Obviously, if the split, we got to know where are they going. Is there room for Io Sky to break out as a main star? I don't know. Is there room for Dakota Kai? I don't know. That's one of the fears, is them getting lost in the shuffle. The other fear, and this is more based on the champions, something that you not failed to mention, but something that you didn't mention is we had the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions watching the match. And I don't know where they're going with this. I don't know what the direction is. As of right now, Raw and SmackDown could technically say they have their own women's tag champions, and I'd be all right with that. My main fear with that is they're going in the direction of another title unification. The women's tag titles. I don't want to see that. I don't think anyone wants to see that. And the fact of the matter is I don't want to see that because we know where they're going. And they're going to Ronda and Shayna soon. No one wants to see Ronda and Shayna with the tag titles. We know that's coming within the year whenever Ronda's healthy once again. I think that's coming. But it's a matter of there's a lot of fears that this match kind of brought with me. There's that. And I mean, there's another main fear that I'd like to say later. But
okay. Well, that'll be an interesting one for sure. But I mean, they are in a situation where perhaps it is possible. I mean, another possibility is that they very simply split the titles off and have NXT's title be on SmackDown and the women's on Raw. Of course, that wouldn't work long term, but rename them. Because I've said it before, the very easy solution for this Raw and SmackDown women's title issue is to just rename the titles. So perhaps I'll do the same with the tag team titles too. And then if they were going to do that, then they have to introduce new tag team titles again on SmackDown because Sami and Kevin on Raw. And of course, as we'll get into a bit later on, that didn't seem to be what was happening last night. Oh, it's a bit that would be a bit messy though. So truthfully, I just have the NXT Women's Tag Team titles, vacate the titles, send them back down to NXT, and just get rid of that issue before it becomes one, to be brutally honest here. Because, just have the tag team titles float both brands if you're going to do that. I don't think there's enough women's tag teams for them to have one on each brand at this time. I'd like that to be, but I very simply don't think that that's a possibility, if I'm being completely truthful. But now let's move on to the next one, and the next segment, and that was Bianca Belair's championship celebration. Well, sorry, she was returning home for a championship celebration, of course, because she has been champion now for well over a year, Raw Women's Champion, despite the fact she's on SmackDown, like I addressed a bit earlier. But, she came down, and then straight away, basically, Asuka returned. The first time we had seen her since WrestleMania. And Asuka walks down, goes to, shake Bianca Belair's hand, tell her well done and all that, and sprays the green mist in the face of Bianca Belair, ruins the celebration. Asuka heel turn, and a heel Asuka versus Bianca Belair is something I'm certainly down for. Their feud on the build up to WrestleMania kind of sucked, truthfully. There wasn't really much story there. They're now developing story, and I love seeing Asuka in the women's title scene. So this is something which I'm certainly interested in seeing where it goes. But Anthony, what were your thoughts on this?
I really like the Asuka heel turn. Going into Mania, I think at least my thought, and I think a lot of people's thought was, well, Asuka was going to take the title off Bianca because her title reign has been meh. It really has not been that great, and they needed a change. Asuka was embracing this darker character, although they didn't technically make her a heel till last night. I like the Mist. I've always been a fan of the Mist. I know it's in tribute to Muda. Tajiri did it. Asuka's doing it. It's all because of Muda. So I like that. I think a heel turn for Asuka was a smart move, refreshes the character, and I think now's the time to take the title off Bianca. Have Bianca chase Asuka for it, because right now, her as a babyface, having heels chase her, it's got very Hogan 80s-esque to it, and that's really not, other than Hogan and maybe Cena, there really is not too many face champions getting chased by heels that are really that successful. It's usually the other way around. It's usually a heel champion being chased by a face. So I think that's the smart play here. Have Asuka turn heel, have Asuka take that belt off of her, regardless of whether it's a SmackDown or Raw, whatever they decide to do with this title.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Asuka's on Raw too, so it's not Raw, sorry, on SmackDown too. So, I mean, regardless, you've still got that issue. And it's a very, 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 very simple solution. And it's a simple solution, which wouldn't just be a solution for now. It'd be the solution for every time this happens in the draft, which is seemingly every other year at this point. But just rename the women's titles. Don't have Raw SmackDown in front of them. Have Universal and World, or, I mean, personally, I don't like the fact one's called Universal, one's called World, but whatever. Have any name for them. There's tons of different possibilities you could do. And then, listen, if you ever want to switch them in the draft, like WWE seemingly love to do, you can do. And it won't be an issue about having to, swap them over. And then, of course, people, in terms of the title history, it gets it all confusing. Unnecessarily confusing, truthfully. But Coby, I believe you said you have something to say about Bianca Belair, so go on.
So the biggest thing that came out of this is the second time they're trying to turn Asuka heel. They attempted before WrestleMania, and they failed. This is the thing that matters. Is we were there at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Asuka was pretty much more over than Bianca Belair. Almost. You can argue that. At the end of the day, and this, just to show it, I have my Backlash notes back out here. And this is when I would have wished I came up with this on the spot. Ben Allison said at the Backlash review last weekend that he was worried about Cody Rhodes having the fans turning on Cody Rhodes. And I'm more inclined to say that I'm more fearful about the fans turning on Bianca Belair with this booking.
Fair enough.
Especially when you're attempting to make Asuka heel. I mean, only time will tell. If Asuka's going to continue to be cheered and Bianca's going to get booed, something has to happen. Something needs to be refreshing in this reign. And like I said before the draft even happened, Charlotte Flair's on this roster. I don't think they're going to – ideally, I don't think they're going to rerun Charlotte Flair and Asuka for that title. I like SummerSlam, I think it is Bianca. It is going to be Bianca Charlotte at the end of the day. So why does Asuka need another loss? I don't know. But that's the same thing. It's the same thing of Cody Rhodes. What's next for Cody Rhodes? Cody's going to beat Brock Lesnar once again. Or Brock's going to win, and then we're forced to get another Cody-Brock rematch. This is the same thing. Why does Asuka have to take another loss? She shouldn't take another loss to Bianca Belair. But that's what I fear is the fans are going to turn on Bianca sooner rather than later.
And that is certainly something that WWE don't want to happen, because Bianca Belair is a big merch seller, and also she's loved. I mean, me and Chaos, I believe it was talking on the show a few days ago about the fact that, a lot of little girls and stuff buy a lot of her merch, and she's an idol for a lot of people. So, I mean, they definitely don't want to have to turn her heel. So that is the worry. That is a very valid worry, and I think the way which you get over that is just by Asuka having her. Asuka beating her for the title at Night of Champions. So it's a fairly short feud, I guess. But then Oscar wins. So then again, it's the babyface kind of chasing the heel champion. And if you wanted to do a rematch, I think that's less likely then for the longer feud for the fans to turn on Bianca. But still, it is a very real possibility, as you pointed out, Coby. But now let's talk. Talking about turns, let's talk about Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, because we've said that this storyline has gone a little stale since Mania, and it has. Last night injected a whole new breath of life into it, because I'm now very much interested in this again. Everyone came out and they were kind of playing happy family, and I was like, come on the Usos, like, what are you doing? Roman Reigns blatantly sent Solo to attack you, and you're acting like you're fine with him again. But I think maybe there's a bit more to it, as we found out later on in that segment. But Roman Reigns came out, started cutting a promo. He was getting a couple of watch-ons, which was annoying considering he has improved so much on the mic. He was cutting great. He was cutting a great promo. But he basically, the thing of the promo was that he was happy that Solo got revenge and took out Riddle, but Solo was not happy that there's still a KO and Sami Zayn problem. And then Roman basically blamed the Usos for that problem. And the Usos were not happy at all. He got in the face of Jimmy Uso and pushed him. Then Roman said, well, you guys need to apologize. And Jimmy looked like he was about to snap on Roman. Jay got in the way. Jay being the voice of reason. Didn't see that one coming. But Jay gets in the way, gets in the face of Roman and says, we apologize. Roman then reveals that him and Solo will be taking on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at Night of Champions. And this segment, there's a few things to break down. The first one being that clearly Jay doesn't want to get kicked out of the family. Of course, we saw that feud a couple of years ago where Reigns managed to take a lot away from Jay. And I mean, clearly Jay doesn't want that to happen again. And that's the reasoning why he's trying to, get back on the good side of Roman rather than being annoyed with him. So I do actually, keeping that in mind, I do take back what I said yesterday about saying, if I was the Usos, I'd take Roman out tonight because you've got to do that. He's disrespected you and all that. I do understand, if you look back 2 years ago and look at the Bloodline arc as a whole story, it does make sense that Jay doesn't want to get kicked out or, leave it. But I think maybe Jimmy versus Roman could be the direction, which would actually be very surprising because Jimmy's not been a side character. I don't want to put it as bluntly as that, but he's not been as near the forefront as Jay and Solo have been at times. So I think I actually would like to see him get his chance and get his flowers. But the interesting thing, of course, is that Roman and Solo are competing for the tag team championships now against Kevin and Sami. I don't like this. I don't like it. I don't understand why they get a tag team title shot. Yes, there's the Heyman thing where Heyman gets whatever Heyman wants. But really? Then they've never had a tag team match together, or maybe they've had one or whatever. Maybe it's live events, but they've not properly had a tag team run. Why are they getting a tag team title shot there? And why isn't Roman Reigns defending his championship? Now, I get it. There's a lack of challengers for him. I get it. Well, what did I say? I completely explained why Bobby Lashley and AJ Styles were being perfect opponents, and they've just decided to completely, for the time being, have them on the world title, whatever, or have Lashley in theory, which I think potentially might hurt them in terms of having a feud with Roman in the near future. But instead of having Roman fight for defend his championship, he is instead fighting for the tag team titles. I don't like it. It's Night of Champions, or the championships should be on the line. And Roman Reigns' title's not on the line, despite the fact it's one of the rare times where he's wrestling on a pay-per-view. I don't like it. I truly don't. But Clark, what did you think about this segment? And are you happy about this tag match?
I loved the segment. The segment was outstanding. And one of my favorite lines, it's so cruel, of Roman when he dropped the greatest tag team of all time off Encicos, just twisting that knife in Jay and Jimmy's back. It was so good. Like, it was so passive aggressive and mob boss-esque. It was just great. That was one of my favorite segments in a long time. And I thought it was interesting. You know, we always talk about Roman either goes first or last. This was in the middle of the show. I think it's the first time we saw that during this whole Bloodline run. And I thought that was cool. I hear where you're coming from on the lack of challengers things. But the idea, and I don't think they'll actually do it, but the idea of Roman Reigns with 4 belts is hilarious. Him and Solo were to beat Sammy and Kevin. And he's got the Universal, the WWE, both the Raw and SmackDown tag belts. And he looked like one of the fans with all the belts at Mania weekend getting autographs, like just draped in gold. Looked like Floyd Mayweather with the WBC belts. It'd be too funny. I don't think they'll do that. I think Solo might take the loss, or there'll be DQ or something. Maybe that's when Jay and Jimmy turn, as they come in and Jay maybe decides, you know, Sammy was a good friend. That'd be interesting. I mean, it'd be a little weird for them to help Sammy and Kevin after everything, but it'd be kind of funny.
I think it would be more a thing towards Roman rather than to help Sammy.
Right, but that's, I guess, to your point. My fear would be that it would be viewed as like, wait, why would they help Sammy and Kevin? Yeah. Right. Even though the intention would be to, obviously it's about Reigns, the aesthetic, I have a hard time getting around that. But other than that, I mean, I don't have a huge issue with it. I agree with you on the Night of Champions. All the belts should be defended, but I also a little bit like them making. So if Roman Reigns defends the WWE Universal Undisputed Championship at Night of Champions, he's either got to go first or last. And I like making this Night of Champions in particular about the introduction of the world title. That's the clear main event. That's what it's about. Elevate that title. It's not a consolation prize. It's a big deal. It's Seth and it's AJ. We can build to it. It's billboard worthy. They'll be on last. We know that almost for sure, right? And somebody stands tall with that new title belt. So from that perspective, I think it does make a bit of sense not to have Roman defend the other one on the card, because then all of a sudden we have, in the very first match for the new title, we unfortunately have to logically compare it to the other world title match on the card.
That's a good point.
And that, I think, could hurt the new world heavyweight championship in the short run. And I think that's why at the end of the day they went with what they did with this tag match scenario.
Yeah, I mean, one of my issues with it is that by the time Night of Champions comes around, Roman Reigns won't have defended that belt in 60 days. By the time Money in the Bank comes around, if he's at Money in the Bank, now he is scheduled for it, but in some places he's now not scheduled for it again. So it's kind of a bit of a mess whether he is or not. It isn't scheduled for it, but it seems to be changing by the day. But officially on WWE.com, he is scheduled for it. But we'll have to wait and see, because they've also scheduled him for events he's not been at before now, and you know, like they were doing with John Cena a few years ago. But if he doesn't defend that Money in the Bank, then that's well over 90 days. In fact, it'll be over 100, well over 100 actually. I think it'll be near 120 if he doesn't defend it until SummerSlam. 120 days without defending that championship, a Universal Championship. Come on. The rule, what traditionally was, I think, 30 days, wasn't it? And then it went to 90 days. And now it's, I mean, and they kind of did scrap that with Brock Lesnar, I believe.
Kayfabe.
Yeah, they kind of bend the rule whenever they want, but it is ridiculous. You don't defend your championship in half a year in WWE. That's just ludicrous. I mean, come on. 90 days is being overly nice, in my opinion. And yes, I know this new World Championship belt is meant to be be defended more and all that. But you're still meant to defend the other one, you know, most pay-per-views, or at least every couple. But anyway, Coby, what did you think about this?
I think the biggest thing that you failed to mention is coming out of WrestleMania, everyone is saying Night of Champions it's either $9.99 or it's day 1,000. That's the thing that kind of ticks me off about it, is you're saying Roman Reigns is about to reach a massive milestone in modern day wrestling, and he's wrestling for a different title. But I 100% agree. The fact of the matter is I think Seth and AJ should main event. Whether they do main event, I'm not too sure, because it's still Roman Reigns on the card.
Yeah, Roman
Reigns can still effectively main event. But I once again, Clark also said the one thing about the greatest tag team, Alpha and Sika. I think that is very much the kicker, as we saw the Usos fail. they dedicated the match to Roman Reigns and they failed. Roman Reigns is dedicating the match at Night of Champions to Afa and Sika. I think they're still going to lose. And that's where something happens. Because the smart direction is the elders doing something. Yeah. Whether that's something Sikoa related, whether that's something Usos related. Something needs to happen. And this is something that was said yesterday. Is we were talking about this entire promo doing something that is so minimal, and I'm like, that can't happen right here. Mm-hmm. That can't happen when Roman Reigns is coming back on SmackDown for the first time since WrestleMania, and something big had to happen. And something did,
110%, Coby. I mean, it's great that they did that for sure. And you do bring up a great point that maybe the elders will have the Usos turn on them. Perhaps Money in the Bank, they then do a tag match, which would be the same issue. But anyway, Anthony, what was your thoughts on this entire segment and this Roman Reigns not defending his title to get to 1,000 days?
Well, a lot of the things kind of already been said. What Clark said was going to be my point. The focus of this show should be the new title. I mean, realistically, everyone's already viewing it as the consolation prize. Oh, it's the people that couldn't beat Roman, or they're going to be the ones that get the belt. So you need to build that. Roman with the title. It's funny when WWE ignores the 30-day rule, because I believe it was always 30. I don't remember them saying 90. Maybe they did.
Yeah, but, they did. But
the moment Brock had it, it was, the MIA title. It was never there, so it doesn't surprise me they're doing the same thing with Roman. The Alpha Sika acknowledgement, it's kind of funny when I was watching the show, hearing Roman talk, I'm going, he's given himself in Solo this tag title shot. I knew before he said it, because just based on where it was going, and then when he said about the tag team, I'm like, it's got to be his father and his uncle. It has to be. And that's exactly what he did. It is interesting with the Jimmy aspect, because if you remember when Jimmy came back after Jay had the feud, Jimmy wasn't that willing to take the knee and eventually caved. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. I mean, they could, in theory, if they blew up the bloodline, in theory, you got 3 potential challengers for Roman to drag him to WrestleMania 40 for Cody if you wanted to, because that could drag it out for months since Roman barely defends it. So what do you got to do? 4 events, realistic 4 or 5 shows to get to him to Mania at that point.
Yeah. No, that is a really great point there, Anthony. And I mean, I kind of do hope that for that reason they don't have Solo turning on Roman. They just have the Usos turning on him. And then from there, of course, you could have down the line before Mania, Solo turning on Roman too, and then having that Solo feud perhaps at the Rumble. Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa at the Royal Rumble. That would be a big match for certain. And I'm sure that would get the Rock rumors going again. But I mean, the issue that I have with it is this, right? Let's say they do Usos versus Roman and Sikoa at Money in the Bank, which is what I think after this conversation they will do. Well, yeah, sure, that'll be a great match, great story and all of that, but he won't have defended his title in 120 days. Then he defended against Jimmy or Jey Uso at SummerSlam. Then perhaps for the pay-per-view after that, you do it against the other one. Then maybe it's Survivor Series, you do an actual opponent for him. And then Solo turns on him, whatever. They then do Solo versus Roman at the Rumble. Well, great. We've gone to WrestleMania. Entire year's passed. And there's been no challenger who isn't bloodline related for that championship. There's been no number one contender, basically. It's like, what? Yeah, so the entire rest of the roster haven't been given an opportunity. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It does, despite the fact from a storyline perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sorry, but you've got to be doing more. If you're going to be a part, this is the issue with this, right? I love these types of storylines, and I do love the idea of having, tag team match, one pay-per-view, then building it up, then him facing all of them. But when you're going to do a big storyline like that, you kind of can't be part-time when it comes to pay-per-views. You can be on TV, but not with pay-per-views. And I think Roman, for the sake of the storyline with the reign he's had, he should just work, not full time for a year, but work on the pay-per-views. Come on, Roman. But that pretty much brings us to the end of the show, guys. Thank you for watching it. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like and comment. And if you're watching on Spotify, 5-star and follow. And we'll be back here for the same, actually, an hour later tomorrow, the normal time tomorrow, for a Sunday, a fun day. And we'll see you guys then. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.